Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome. How exciting to have you here. Thank you for being here. Pedro, I can hear you. I think you're muted.
I am muted right now. I think we're good. Hello.
Okay. It looked like you were trying to say something.
Nope, just making sure that I get this handout for everybody who didn't get the email. Our guest today sent out a handout, so please, if you don't have it ready to be used, download that and have it next to you, please.
Thank you for that. Well, we are so excited to welcome Dr. Renée-Paule Gauthier in our session today. She is a fantastic musician, entrepreneur, coach, and academic as well, orchestra musician, mother of two. She's been juggling so many different things. And I'm very excited to feature her in our music entrepreneurship departmental today. You are in for a very special treat. And yeah, just so excited to be able to bring her in and to have her share her experience. She has had an incredible trajectory as a musician, and last year she completely reinvented herself, as we've all had to in the midst of a pandemic. And I'm just really happy that she gets to share all of that with you all today. So welcome, Renee. It's so good to have you here.
Hi, Fabiana. So great to be here. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all. And it's so fun for me to be here because Dr. Chloe is someone that I think so highly of, someone who I find so inspiring and who is accomplishing so many wonderful things. So it's a real honor to be invited here to speak with you today. And so, what I'm going to try to do, as Mr. Garcia said, I did send out a handout. This was just so that you don't have to wonder what to take notes about if you are inclined to take some notes. I'm going to try to go through what the material that I prepared rather quickly, so we have a lot of time for questions at the end. And, in the meantime, I'm also going to try to keep a close eye on the chat. So let me make sure that I have this nearby. But if it appears that there's something important that I'm missing, please don't hesitate to jump in, Dr. Chloe, and let me know. And I'm going to make sure I have my handout here on the side so I can keep track of what's going on. As Dr. Chloe said, my name, and thank you so much for saying my name so well. I rarely get treated to such a wonderful pronunciation of my name in English. I appreciate it. In short, I am Renee. I am a violinist, a performer, and I have been teaching for many years. I live in Chicago, and I perform mostly with lyric opera, the Joffrey Ballet, and the Chicago Symphony. On occasion as well, I teach at North Park University, and my passion is everything related to mind over finger. And I started a blog about this a few years ago. I did all of my research centered on mindful practice, on helping all of my students reach peak performance, enjoy practicing, and subsequently ended up starting a coaching business. And then, as Dr. Chloe said, COVID sort of expedited everything. And what I want to talk to you about today is really how much is about how much power you have in the creation of your own career. So in 2021, anything is possible, So the technology has taken away all of the gatekeepers. There's massive changes in how things are done. And COVID has been devastating in many ways, but it's also helped facilitate, if I can use that word, a lot of change in our industries in many ways. I'm not going to expand on that because that's a talk for another day, but the short of it is there's no limit to what you can do and what your career can look like. Now, where do we start? Where does your career start? And I really think it starts with your big, audacious dream. And I'm sure that you've seen all of these questions in many places, and you're wondering, why do I need to establish this vision? Why is she not coming at me with tips and tricks on how to build a career? And that's because without this vision, so if you look at the handout, establish the vision. Without this vision, you are allowing default to enter your life. And what we want is intention. So you have to know what your vision is. You must make the reflection. And if there's one thing that you leave with today, I would rather you do the first part, the establishing the vision, rather than spend time thinking about all of the other things. Because if you have the vision and you are inspired by your vision and you feel fueled by your mission, everything else you can figure out. And also you have a fantastic guide here in Dr. Chloe. And this seems to be an amazing program. So everything else you can figure out. But if you do take the time to make the reflection of what that dream is, anything is possible. So take the time to think about this, make some decisions, and know this about decisions. You can change them anytime. But you have to start somewhere. So make a decision, commit to a path, and that's going to guide all of your decisions, subsequent decisions, all of your actions. But the key, as I said already, is intention, not default. And an intentional career, not one that you get by just, going with the flow. You actually have a massive head start on me. Because when I was your age, and everything I share today are things I wish I had heard at your age. When I was your age, no one ever pointed out to me that I could do anything I wanted. I was just told, hey, you can have a brilliant career within these parameters. You can be a performer, you can be a teacher, you can play in an orchestra, or you can be an arts administrator. Here's what's been done before, and you can do this, you can do that. So you pretty much follow the path. And that's what I did. And I practiced really hard, and I had amazing opportunities come my way, and I would just kind of be like, oh, that sounds good, I'll do that. Oh, that sounds good, I'll do that. And I'm really happy with the career I have today, for sure, absolutely. And I always had this nudge of starting things, always, because I'm my mother's daughter. And that's, again, a story for another day. I always had this nudge of starting things, and I did throughout my life. But it became really obvious to me in, I would say, more so the last 10 years, that the only barriers were in my head. So I'm telling you now, the barriers are going to be in your head most of the time. So, and what I said earlier is so true. These gatekeepers, they don't really exist. Big institutions, they were started by people like you and me. Think about the Oscars. Someone decided that they wanted to start an award show one day, and now it's this big institution. Who's to say that you're not going to start the next Oscar or anything else? Sky's the limit. So what I'm telling you is that you can create the most amazing things, but let yourself dream and let yourself think it. If you can think it and dream it, you can figure it out. A couple weeks ago, I did in my group, the Mind Over Finger Tribe, I did something that I call the Joyful Practice Challenge. It's a way to all come together and really reconnect with our love of music and figure out ways to make practicing really enjoyable. That's possible, believe me. And the pedagogue Simon Fisher, for those of you who play the violin might know what I'm talking about, came in and he said something. He was like, human beings, they don't really waste time dreaming about growing wings and flying because it's not possible. So a lot of times we're not even going to be dreaming about things that are impossible, like growing wings and flying. So for me, that was a little bit mind-blowing, because I thought, it's so true. Because what he said is, actually, if you can dream about it and think it, there's a way to achieve it. Think about the iPhone. Think about the person who conceptualized the iPhone, and he's talking about it to a colleague. And the colleague's thinking, that sounds crazy. Like, that's not possible. That doesn't exist. No one's ever done that before. What if that person had stopped there and hadn't created prototype and tried and failed and stayed connected with that vision of this insane thing in his or her head of the iPhone? I say his and her because it's probably a team working on creating the iPhone. But think about that. Someone had told me 20 years, actually that happened. Someone told me when I was a child that we would one day talk on the phone and see each other. And what I said is, no way, it's impossible. So I was wrong greatly. I couldn't dream it, but someone else could, thankfully, right? Because we wouldn't be seeing each other today. So if you can dream it, if you're thinking it, there's a way to achieve it. So we're not going to have time to do this right now. If we had more time, I would have us kind of workshop these questions. But I would love for you, like I said, if you take anything away from what I'm saying to you right now, is take these questions and think about them. That's the most important thing. Everything else you can figure out. Why do you love music? What does it bring to you? What does it mean to you personally? So we're connecting with why we're doing this, why the essence of it, the core. When you think about your career, what gets you excited? For me, it was the sound of the orchestra, playing with other people. Sit down in the lounge and nerd out about practicing techniques. And guess what I'm doing today? I have a podcast where I nerd out with amazing people about practicing techniques. How amazing is that? Like, these are the things I loved doing as a kid. If you knew you could not fail, remember the barriers are in your head. If you knew you could not fail, what would your career look like? If there were no gatekeepers, and if you kept trying things, failing, adjusting, trying again, readjusting, but knowing that ultimately you cannot fail, what would you create? What would the career look like? What would your life look like? And I think it's great to think about it 5 years from now, 10 years from now, maybe even longer. The last two questions I put in there are really important. Who do you need to be to get there? I'll get to that. I'll get back to this in a second. And what do you need to do to get there? I want to get back to what I said here. See, this is good to keep the handout nearby because I can't remember everything. I wrote specific but flexible. What do I mean for that? Is that you don't want to be easily swayed off course, but you want to stay open-minded. So you don't want to give up when the first obstacles start to show up. But as you grow, as you learn, as you get experience, as you evolve, the goal might start to morph or opportunities might show up. So you want to be resolute and dedicated and motivated, but not rigid and close-minded. So going back to who you need to be to get there. Oh, and you know, one thing, excuse me, I want to say is there's also nothing wrong with dreaming about a traditional career. Absolutely none. If you dream of getting a job in an orchestra, in teaching, and if what is out there already appeals to you, that's 100% fine. And then you realize who you need to be to get there, what you need to do to get there. But I've seen too many times people who want to do these things and more that feel limited by the gatekeepers or what is possible or what has been done before. So I just want to make that clear, that the things that are out there right now, the careers that are already happening out there, they're wonderful. And if that's what you're aspiring to, amazing. I mean, I love playing in an orchestra. I am not letting that go. As soon as I get my vaccine and rehearsals start again, I am there for sure. But I feel so fueled and fulfilled by the other interests and passions that I'm allowing myself to pursue, that I finally have granted myself permission to pursue. Why can't I do both? Right? So, okay. What do I mean by who do you need to be to get there? So what are some of the qualities and the skills you need to develop? So, okay, I'll go with the orchestra example. You have to be a good player. You need to know your technique, know the repertoire, learn how to do auditions, work with others. If you want to be a teacher in academia, you also need to be a great player. You need to know about pedagogy. You need to love to teach. You need to love people. If you want to be a music entrepreneur, the first thing I would say is get comfortable with discomfort. Get comfortable with trying things and not succeeding, and then trying something else. You're going to need things like, you need to be someone who's holding a vision, keeps going. Like, I think you see what I'm talking about. And what you need to do to get there, then these are the things, you could make a list of everything that is likely to get you there. Prioritize. You can't do all of them at once. Finishing your degree is a good one, right? Practicing is a good one. And as you move forward, you reevaluate, you plan, you adjust. Like, what are the things that you need to do? Again, with the orchestra job, well, keep practicing your instrument, get experience taking audition, get lots of coaching. College teachers, start teaching now. Maybe you need to academia, maybe most likely in 2021, you probably need to consider getting a doctorate. Get experience teaching, plan your academic career, all of these things. So we need to be to get there. So once you know your goal and you have some ideas of steps to get there, you can start implementing the structure, develop the habits, and all of the things that are going to support you in getting to the goal. I want to talk briefly about your college education. This is really important because one thing I'm seeing a lot these days are articles or posts on social media about college did not prepare me for this, and no one taught me this in college or that. Regardless of what it is, I want you to take ownership. And this is what everything I'm talking about today is about. Is you are in charge. The second you start complaining about what other people didn't provide you with, you're putting them in charge of your life. And you don't want that. So, your school, what you can expect from them is to provide the curriculum promised. So before you applied, you did your research, you talked to people, and they promised to offer you a curriculum. That's what they need to provide you with. And they need to provide you a safe and adequate environment to do that. The problem is school cannot prepare you for life. They cannot. It's not possible. Because your degree would last 10 years, 15 years. How happy would you be with that? Like, would you sign up? 10 years? No way. That's too long. Therefore, what happens is in the degree, the school prioritizes the things that are most urgent for you to learn, the basics, the things that are required from everybody. But you are an individual, and it is your responsibility. It's what I wrote here. The rest is on you. So don't put the responsibility on your school to teach you everything. It's just impossible to fit it in. And they cannot tailor everything to your interest, your skills, and your personality. So what you want to do, and why we know this is because two people graduating from the same class at the same school will reach completely different levels of success. Why? Is it the school's fault? No, it's because they handled their lives differently. So I mean to tell you this in a very empowering way, because this is great news. So, in the handout I wrote, establish what's needed to create your unique and fulfilling career. You have to know this. Don't live a default life and just be like, well, they know better than me what I want in life. I'm pretty sure everything I need to succeed at everything in life is going to be provided here, so I don't have to think about my future. No. So like I said, establishing the vision is the most important thing. Everything I say from now on is just icing on the cake. Use the resources and follow advice. That's the number one thing. And I don't know how you're going to feel about this, Dr. Clory, but in the lessons when students come in, so many times I'll say like, hey, did you go to that concert I suggested? Oh, no, I didn't have time. Did you practice the way I said this passage? Oh, no, I decided to just do endless mindless run-throughs instead of doing the slow mindful practice you recommended. Oh, did you read this book? Oh, no, I didn't have time. Right? I live in Chicago, and I don't know if any of my students are here. We have the Chicago Symphony in town. It's a pretty good band. It's pretty good. Do they go to all the concerts? No. Do you know how expensive tickets are for students? $15. So you see what I mean? Use the resources. I went to Northwestern. They have a fabulous career center. When I saw this, I was like, wow, I've been here once. What a waste. I'm a moron. Should have been here so much more. There are people teaching you. Anyway, I could go on all this about this. I need to move on. Use the resources. Try what your teacher tells you. Read books. Expand on that. Pursue interests. I love mindful practice. I read books about this all the time. Identify the gaps in your knowledge. Strategize on how to fill them. I mean, a great example of this, too, is a young lady named Alyssa Tong, who just graduated from college last year. She has created online programs. She hires at the age of 22 or 23 Cleveland Institute faculty members, Juilliard, Curtis. They work for her for the festivals that she creates. She's created amazing summits. It's a thing called String Insiders. She's 22, 23, I forget. She started all of these things while she was in college, reading books, Googling things, asking help from her parents. Incredible. If she can do it, you can too. So identify the gaps in your knowledge and take ownership of filling them, of pursuing these interests. This next thing, thinking about your career, it's an ongoing thing. Keep visualizing what that career is for you. Tap in your intuition. It's going to tell you a lot of things. And in the sidebar here, I don't know if I'm going to have time to get to that. Probably not. There's a few tips on decision making. If we have time, I'll get to that. But there are few tips that you can try on a decision with. Physical tests, worst case scenario tests. This can help you. But listen to your intuition. Mindfulness helps with that, like meditation, yoga, all these things. Consult with people that have careers. Send an email to Dr. Chloe or show up for her office hours. She's an incredible resource. You have one right there at your school. And do your research. Take ownership. Now, the helpful mindsets. The first one, I put it in bold because resourcefulness. You can figure it all out. We didn't have Google when I was your age. Use it. But if you can dream it, you can figure out how to get there. Be resourceful. When you see a barrier, remember, or an obstacle, remember it's in your head. There's a way that you can figure out how to overcome that hurdle. There's a solution somewhere. So if you are resourceful, you will do the research, you will figure out how to overcome that. Patience, perseverance, and courage. It's not always easy. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be doubt. There's going to be fear, failure. But failure is only a clue as to what you can change to succeed. So look for failure. Try everything. There's one of my coaches encourages us to get 100 fail a year. You have to fail 100 times. Because guess how many things you have to try to fail 100 times? More than 100. And then some of them will succeed. So by collecting 100 fails, you get 50 amazing wins on the side. So look for that. Determined yet flexible, very important. So keep the goal, but remain flexible to who you're going to become in the process of searching, of going after this goal, and the opportunities that are going to come your way as well. So it might not happen the way you thought it would. So determined but flexible. Self-compassion. Excellence does not come from rigidity, self-hate, being harsh with yourself. This actually adds barrier. And this is another topic where I could speak for about 5 hours. So I'm just going to keep going for now. But know that self-compassion is real important. If you want to know more about this, it's a huge empowering tool that will lead you to more accomplishments. Sorry, I was thinking in French now and then I can't think of my words. But I have a lot of resources on self-compassion, but this one should be like yellow with a heart around it. Self-compassion is an amazing tool. Remember that you're here by choice. No one is forcing you to be here. All of the requirements that you think you have to do to graduate from your degree, you chose them because you want the result at the end. So don't put the responsibility on others. Oh, I have to go to work. No, you choose to go to work because you want the money. I have to practice. No, you choose to practice. I have to write this paper. No, you choose to write this paper because you want the result. So if you can really start to see that everything is your choice, it's going to feel so empowering and so great. See what happens when you start to feel empowered all the time. Now, useful skills. Teaching is a really incredible skill to develop, if only because when you teach, you learn. So I would actually encourage all of you to start looking for opportunities to teach or mentor other people. Hugely helpful. These are small details on the side too, but arranging and composing is something that you can use as well. Other creative branches. Everything after this are skills that I have developed by either Googling things, reading books, doing it, hiring coaches, hiring people to help, signing up for programs, blogging, writing, what I mean by multidisciplinary is that you can start to create anything that you want. There's a wonderful man called Murray Hydery, I hope I'm saying this well, pianist who loves technology. He's a composer as well, and he's inspired by nature and all of these beautiful locations. And he had this concept in his head where he bought a bunch of headphones, and he has people come in the park and they just listen to him improvise for hours. And he's got a huge number of followers who just go to all of these events. Can you imagine if that guy had decided that he must absolutely do what has been done before? Yeah, limits are in our head. So don't be afraid to create events that reach in other disciplines that you're interested in. Food, theater. There's even a guy who, I forget what it's called. I forget his name. Andrew Owsley or something like this. He has like this burger club where they have concert paired with type of burgers. You know, like, why not? There are people who love music and burgers, you know, why not? Using technology, recording video, photos, you can develop all of these things. Web design is very helpful, graphic design, managing some platforms, all of that are things that can supplement that dream. Once you have the vision, there are things that are mostly easy to figure out. But there's a lot of people out there that can help you. Google, coaches, programs that you can sign up. But I would not, the reason why they're there is, it's a simple reason, is that do not feel like I can't create a website, therefore I can't have the career of my dreams. It's so easy to figure it out. You want to get resourceful and find a solution to that problem. But all of these things listed there in that useful skills category are things that I ended up just learning because I had a vision of what I wanted to do and I did it. And there's so many of my colleagues, I mean, maybe Fabiana will agree with me that so many of these things that there are skills that are really useful to develop in the realization of these dreams that we have. Time management is there because that's also something you want to spend time thinking about. How do you function best? How do you prioritize the things that, I mean, they use a book, I forget the name of the author. It's a fantastic book called Essentialism. And hopefully I could remember the title, the name of the author. He calls about, he says, nurturing the asset. You are the asset. How do you manage your time so that you're able to function at the highest level? And that's also in the bar there. I'm going to tie the two together. Prioritizing your well-being, nutrition, exercise, mindfulness practice, growth, connection. This goes with time management. How can you make sure you carve time in your schedule for those things? This is going to fuel everything else. It's going to fuel your energy, your creative space. Oh, thank you. Yes. And so time management, unfortunately, is just a little line there in useful skills, but it's a big one. Another one that should be bold and circled with the heart. And then finally, I want to leave a lot of time for questions, so I'm going really quickly through things. Some of the good moves that I find really important. Maintain your skills. So for me, it's practicing, reading books, staying on top of the new research. These days I'm really involved with mindfulness and applying all this. There's so much research coming out all the time. For me, it's very interesting. So I like to stay on top of this. So how can you maintain your skills? Invest in your ongoing education. I cannot say this enough. I started with my first coach, I think it was about 5 years ago, but maybe more. I mean, right before that, as a violinist, I always had a teacher, and I have a tendency to always have someone mentoring me. But 5 years ago, I hired my first coach, and I will never be without a coach for the rest of my life. That's part of the budget. It's important for me. It's a priority. But books, online courses as well, coaches, yes, mentors, all of these things. Lessons. If you want to keep taking some lessons, it's always great. Nurture your relationship with peers and mentors. And then the last thing I'll put here, ask for help, both free and paid. So what I mean by this is anyone doing the things that you are excited about, contact them. Ask them for advice, ask them for help. But also don't be afraid to invest and hire people who can help you accomplish things. So for example, in all of these useful skills I have in there, you can teach yourself to do all of these things, but you can also hire people to help you with these, which will free up time for your creative endeavors, where you live in your zone of genius, as they call it. So I want to open things time for a question, but the last thing I'll say is don't be passive about your future. Have the courage, and I say courage because it's not easy to reflect hard and ask yourself the hard questions. What do I want? What am I dreaming about? If I'm not lying to myself, if there's no failure possible, if I don't limit myself to what I think is possible, what do I really want truly? And doesn't mean you have to quit everything and make radical changes, but look inside, don't look outward. And don't give other people the power over what you can create. So don't blame other people for what's missing in your education. You want to take ownership of what you need to be, what you need to learn to create the career that you want, and make it your responsibility to identify where some of the gaps are and fill them, because everything is out there. There's so much wonderful information, and there's a solution for any problem that you have in that realization of that dream, of that vision that you're going to create for yourself. Yes, so we've reached the end of the content that I've prepared. I went by so quickly. We could talk about this all day, but I would love to keep some time for question.
Thank you so much. Wow. Such wonderful words of wisdom that you've just shared. Thank you so much for this. And yes to all of it, and especially yes to how are you going to turn this into action? How are you going to implement all of these things that we're sharing with you? I mean, I was just in my class before our session today, and I had shared some resources, our previous class, on how to create really good slides and how to have a really good strategy on engaging slides and prepare really, engaging presentations where you can avoid what's called death by PowerPoint. This is wonderful TED Talk. And today, my students showed up and their slides look the same. You know what I mean? So it's like, you can get this information and you can use it and implement it, or you can just let it come in this ear or leave the out. And then, so my question to all of you, and I'd love for you to maybe share in the chat, from everything you just heard, what is the one thing you are going to go out and actually implement today? Now, like, what is the one thing that you feel you are not going to postpone? You're not going to say, oh yeah, that sounded really good, next. But you're actually going to go out and do, because that's the only way you're actually going to get the most out of this experience, get the most out of your time in the UNT. You have so much abundance of information and guidance and support, but unless you deliberately make yourself act upon this wisdom that you're being given, nothing is going to change. And as Renee says, don't blame your education afterwards. Don't blame the lack of this or lack of that. It's on you to take ownership of your career, of your action, of your life. No one else is going to do that. So Anne says, what I'm doing today, dream. There you go. That's an action, and a very important one. Very important one, because that's visualization, that's strategic planning, that's setting intentions, as you know, Renee said. This is very, very important. What else? Let's see more comments here in the chat. What else are you going to take action on? Remember a positive and active mindset. Great, Sarah. Thanks for sharing. So keep this coming. Share in this chat also by participating. Just the fact that you're here, just the fact that you're chiming in and sharing in the chat is already a great sign of being proactive. You're here, you put your camera on, you're present, you are connected, you are gaining from this experience, right? Share, engage, be here. Pedro says, being more active in planning how to get where I want to go. Callaway says, I will analyze what I feel is missing in my degree and consider ways to fill in those gaps. There you go. There are always ways that you can fill in the gaps, and in life as well. Perfect. So let's give everyone a chance to ask some questions. Pedro, do we have any questions that were submitted ahead of time before our session? I always like to honor those, the people who took the time to read and research our presenter and submit questions. Can you maybe pick a few from there?
Yeah, I got a couple here that we can go deeper on based off of the conversations we've had. I will post it in chat and read it out loud for the recording. This one is from Matthew Stuckey, and he asks, what is the most common issue you observe in the mindset and practice habit of musicians? How can we best set our mindset in a positive way that impacts our career, performance, teaching, etc., etc.?
That's a big question. The most common issue I observe, I'll look at the practice first, the practice habit, and I would say that, right, mind over finger, mindlessness. That's the biggest one. And the mindset is, I don't know. I want to read you a quote that one of my coaches said yesterday. You're going to love it. I wrote it down. I don't know is nothing more than a lie a brain offers to keep us stuck and comfortable. So when you're struggling with a passage in practice or an obstacle in a project and you're like, oh, I don't know. No, that's a lie. Because if you really went out of your comfort zone and got curious and asked yourself, okay, let's assess what's going on here. What can I try? What have I not done? What have I missed? And what can I try? Even if I fail, how can I solve this? Or pick up the phone. I know we don't do it this way anymore, but whatever. Pick up the phone, call someone. Hey, I have this problem. So I don't know keeps you stuck. It's always a lie. You can always find a solution. So that's the mindset, I think, is being or feeling like you have no power over it. I can't do anything about this. I don't know, or I don't know what, I can't do anything. So these are some of the common issues. And set our mindset in a positive way that impacts our career, performance, and teaching. It's an ongoing commitment to observe the thoughts that we're having, try to see what they are, and see if we can become our own. I mean, that's a big topic, but what are you thinking that's keeping you stuck? Analyze the thought. And oftentimes it's going to be like, I can't do that. I don't know how to do this. But if I knew, what would it look like if I wasn't afraid to try something or ask for help? And you know, the thing is, sometimes a project looks big. I started a chamber music festival that is highly successful. I ran it for 10 years and then I moved forward because I moved to the US. It started with a conversation during a cocktail party. And then I was like, hey, this guy said he could find money for a festival. Festival sounds like a big idea, right? But what if I called them and said, did you really mean that? And then next thing, what if I thought of a venue? What if I thought of one thing at a time? So from one conversation, one phone call, one idea, one tiny problem at a time, you end up with a successful festival. I can go all the way on this, but the barriers are in your mind. How can you remove these barriers and say, if I knew how to unsolve, that's not English, if I knew how to solve this, what would that look like? So I hope I'm answering the question.
Absolutely. Anything else, Pedro?
Yes, I have another one from Michaela Peterson. Let me post it here. She starts, I really like the idea of your mind overthinker podcast. I sometimes find myself getting slightly bogged down in the practice room, and I think these podcasts would be helpful for me. Was there a specific experience that led you to make this podcast?
Yes, I'm a huge nerd. Like I said, it was always my thing. I love being in the corridor talking about practice tips, or at a party, I'm always in like the quiet area talking about stuff with people. And I was having so many fun conversations with so many amazing musicians, and I kept thinking, oh, if my student could hear this, if my student could hear this, if my student could hear this. And then one day I was like, I saw a friend of mine start a podcast, and I was like, wait, you can do that? Like a normal person can start a podcast? And I was like, wait, I wonder if she can do that. She was starting a real estate podcast. What is really involved? So I went on Google and I asked my friend Jason Heath, you have a pretty good podcast. How does it work? I ordered the mic that day, and then I Googled everything else, and I started sending emails, and I just tried things until it showed up on the platform. And I think this is related to, if I want to go back to something I saw, it would take some work for me because I always hated failing and the feeling of failing. If you change your mindset from failure being a bad thing to failure being the success in terms of what it teaches you, and it proves that you're trying things, and the clues that it gives you in how to better not change course, but how to find new solution, then failure is not a bad thing. I wish we could change that word and be like, I don't know, but failure means that you tried something and that you're learning something. So if you change your mindset about failure from something that holds you back to something that is actually the thing you need to go through to go forward, then it's not as scary. I mean, I still don't like it, but that's why I have a coach. I have 3 actually right now. And that's why they're like, do this. And I'm like, oh, do I really have to? And they say, yes, you do. And then I do it. And I was like, wow, I did it. And I survived. I'm still alive. And I'm further ahead. Does that make sense? Yeah, being comfortable with uncomfortable. Absolutely. That's really good.
Thank you so much. There's just so much that we can continue talking about and think about. But what I would love is, as we wrap up our session today, how can we all follow you? I mean, I know how I follow you, but I'd love for you to maybe invite our class to, what are some ways that you would recommend they continue these conversations with you? What are your communities? What are the forums? You are such an thought leader in our industry, and you are constantly creating content that adds incredible value. So can you share with us some of these platforms? Where can people find you? Kalina says, I'm already subscribed to her podcast. Well, there you go.
Thank you, Kalina.
Share with us, not only how can people find you, but also you're just modeling what people could do. Like as musicians, how do you become an authority in your field? How do you develop thought leadership? This is a great case study. This is a great model. Look at everything Dr. Gauthier has created. Look how she's established her presence. Nobody taught her how to do this. She figured it out herself, right?
Yeah.
So how can you all look at her like online presence and just feel inspired by this? And of course, you're in this program, so obviously you're already in a place where you're being shown the paths to do all of this. So you're already pretty pretty ahead of most musicians in typical university programs, but still, how can you take this a step further and take action on this? So I'll let Renee maybe wrap it up.
Yes. Well, to answer your question, Mind Over Finger on Google will take you to everything related to me. So my website is mindoverfinger.com. And I'm also very active on Instagram at mindoverfinger. Thank you. This is great. And I have a Facebook group called the Mind Over Finger Tribe where we do fun things. Tomorrow I'm having my friend Konstantin Sukovitsky, a pianist from New York City, come and do a Q&A in my group, and we do joyful practice challenges. And then the podcast, of course, is the source of wisdom from my guests. So, but I want to say one last thing that, I don't know why I never mentioned this. Probably because it makes me emotional. But I suffered from a lot of bullying as a child. I'm someone who was heavily bullied. And that affected me tremendously to this day. Like the cafeteria syndrome hits me hard. I don't like unknown environment, and like bullying changes you. But there are all these moments when I say tap in your intuition, there are all these tiny moments where I remembered who I was and where I felt a nudge. I really want to do this. And I really want to say that, but I'm afraid to say it. And then there's a point where you're like, I'm going to go ahead and say it. And then you're like, oh, I didn't die. Nothing awful happened. And then you start to realize that, first of all, kids are cruel. And then you turn into an adult. And you gather your courage. And you're like, I don't have to do everything at once. But I can take one action every day. One tiny act of courage. One phone call, one email, one request. And start to build a dream by just listening to the voice. Listen to the things that keep popping in your head that your ego, I'm not saying like the ego in terms of the part of you that is egotistical. I mean the ego as in the part of you that wants to keep you safe and logical and says, stop thinking about that. That's not realistic. That's how it was for the podcast. I thought about it for months before I did anything about it. And the voice was like, wouldn't that be great if I had my own podcast? Because I would listen to other people's podcasts and I'd have this running commentary and I'd say like, why doesn't the host shut up? I want to hear the answers and he keeps talking. Or why isn't he asking that? Or you know what I mean? And I'm sure people feel that way too when they listen to my podcast. Like, why isn't she asking this and that? And they start your own podcast. And then one day I finally listened to the little voice. And like I said, it starts with one email, one Google search. And so listen to the voice inside and build that courage muscle and get resourceful. Because if there's something in your mind that keeps an image that comes back or some ideas, there's a way for you to figure out how to make it happen.
Thank you very much. It has been wonderful having you here. Thank you to all the students who participated, who are engaged, who are sharing their comments. And, I really appreciate all of you being here and joining in this conversation. And thank you so much to Dr. Gauthier for her wonderful insights. Wonderful. Thank you all for being here. And I really look forward to, having you all continue following Dr. Gauthier. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Dr. Gauthier, for all your insights.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. And if anyone has any question, don't be afraid to reach out. I'll answer.
Thank you, everyone.